Morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with Malcolm Dorsey. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Tor Metals. Our goal this morning here is to give investors and prospective investors an update on Tor Metals. We've been involved with Tor Metals now for a number of months, and it's a story that, as in all the companies that we look at, companies that have excellent projects, excellent people, and are available at a very good price. So the whole focus today is really to turn the call over to Malcolm, who's the Chief Executive Officer. A couple highlights to begin, I guess. One is the timing is very good. Tor Metals recently put out a corporate update as of today, and Malcolm's going to go over what their plans are with Tor Metals over the coming months. And I guess one of the things I want to highlight as well is the remarkable price. I mean, Tor Metals is currently trading around 10, 11 cents, which makes a very attractive entry price for investors, for those that are already existing shareholders, and also for those that are looking for a solid copper story in British Columbia. We've been continually impressed with the management and their ability to execute with the capital that they have on hand, and they've been operating within a fully funded exploration drill program. And so I think for investors, you really do want to look at all times at the price. So with a market cap below 10 million, with the kind of land package that Tor Metals has, and the quality of management, as you'll hear from Malcolm, and they really are boots on the ground type management style. They know their assets very well, and they're very active, as Malcolm's going to update us on. And I guess Malcolm, one of the things I would like to start with to spend a couple minutes is on the commodities market. I mean, you just can't, every day there's, more and exciting stories coming out, not only about copper, but the commodities in general. So if we look at copper and gold, for example, Craig Perry is one of the industry experts in British Columbia and in Canada. He came out with some very aggressive targets on copper, saying that copper's actually outperformed gold, which, of course, gold has had a stunning run this year. But I think that Bank of America yesterday put out a great article on how they just expect commodities to outperform over the coming years. And, for investors, if all you did was own commodities, a basket of commodities the last 100 years, of course, you've done, very, very well. And I think what the Bank of America analysts were highlighting, how important commodities are going forward. We've got structural inflation. We've got, all kinds of jurisdictional risk from various wars and different things that are going on in the world. And it really lays a really strong case for commodities, and in particular copper. I mean, the numbers that you read are stunning. We need $200 billion worth of investment over the next 10 years. So there's no shortage of seeing articles and news out about the importance of having commodities in your portfolio, as compared to, for example, bonds, which are considered to be risky assets going forward because of the inflationary risk. So that as a backdrop, I often look at things from a macroeconomic point of view. Is where do you want to be? Well, you want to be in commodities, and in the commodity business, the copper is the one that simply is the biggest player, I think, in the commodity sector. And then I guess the third thing is, well, what jurisdiction do you want to be in, and then what company you're going to buy? And that's how we look at things. And if we can find a company like Tor Metals, which is trading for a very low market cap with really strong management and excellent projects, then the investors can focus on buying that individual security along with others, obviously, in a properly structured investment portfolio. So it's really that macroeconomic. You want to be in commodities, you love copper, and then you want to find a good copper explorer in a good jurisdiction, and that's Tor Metals. So, with that, why don't I hand it over to you, Malcolm, to start off with just your general comments about the sector, and then, of course, give us an update on what you're doing and why we should buy more stock.
Mhm. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for having me here, Sherman, and for the introduction as well. Yeah, with that, I think we can have this straightforward discussion of we could start with the macroeconomics, maybe some of the elements that I see right now, and something that's been becoming more apparent, I think, and I even have seen some recent articles, even in the last couple of days, talking about sulfuric acid, which is and very key ingredient for leach processing for copper mine production. So that is a thing that I think was not thought of with the start of these conflicts happening in the Middle East. But with that, there's actually about half the world's supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. There's even a lot of domestic production in countries such as Iran of sulfuric acid. And that is something that I think is going to start to impact copper production, as well as it's going to impact the thinking of major mining companies. And this is something that, yeah, that has always been fundamental to the strategic thinking of Tor metals. And that really comes from I first got started. I'm a structural geologist by training. Got started working with major mining companies, then went to mid-tiers, then the junior mining space eventually. So I do know some thought processing that they'll be thinking about right now. And with that, I think they're going to really look towards, well, where are safe jurisdictions to operate? Where can we get secure supply chains and integrated supply chains? So they're not just going to be looking at prospectivity of the geology, but also where they can have producing assets, where those producing assets can acquire nearby feed production, as well as those integrated secure supply chains, I think are going to become more and more important looking forward. And with that, I think you're going to see a lot of major mining companies, of course, areas such as South America, so Chile, Peru, and then Central America, Mexico, are going to be heavily impacted with their style of copper production by shortages in sulfuric acid. You're going to have less impact in North America because, of course, sulfuric acid comes from the petroleum industry. North America has that domestically. We have our own supply. And the type of copper production, we're predominantly a lot of sulfide ore. So we still use flotation processes. We produce concentrates. So we're not going to be as heavily impacted. So all that's going to feed into, all right, from a macro scale, major miners, I think, will start looking towards North America. It's a safe jurisdiction. It's got those integrated supply chains. Within that, if you're looking towards Canada, in Canada, the largest copper producing belt is in the southern Quesnel Trough of British Columbia. So that's in the southern portion of British Columbia, really around up to 100 Mile House, Quesnel, down to Kamloops and Copper Mountain down in Princeton in the far south. And right within that, so if you were to look at a map, and this is something that I've got in my presentation as well, is a map of major mining land positions in this area, because this is where our flagship Colos Copper Gold Project is located. To the north of us, you've got majors that hold the ground going for about 100 kilometers to the north of us. And then to the south of us, you have Hudbay and Copper Mountain. In between, the only gap that's held by juniors with two of the largest land packages would be myself with the Colos Copper Gold Project and Kodiak Copper. So what you've got is now about 9 major miners in this region. So I always tell people look towards where the major miners are concentrating to get an idea of where they see value for new discovery. And if you look towards British Columbia, they're concentrating in the south. And that's because you've got the same prospectivity of geology as you would find up in the north, but you have access to existing provincial infrastructure. You have rail lines, you have railway, you have highways, you have major existing mining assets. Right around the Colos project, we've got the New Afton mine to our north, about 30 kilometers. We have Highland Valley to our west, which is Canada's largest open pit copper mine owned by Teck, also 30 kilometers to our west. And then you have Copper Mountain and Hudbay just 100 kilometers to our south. So we're certainly strategically located if you're looking for some of the bigger copper producing belts in North America. We are leveraging that fact, the near-term need for feed. And with that, we've also got a large land package, 332 square kilometers, that has been vastly underexplored. And people keep asking me, well, you're right along Highway 5. You can drive to all of your targets right from the highway. How can that be? How has this not been extensively explored? And I think it's really just been that the southern Quesnel Trough has a very thin till veneer. So you can't just walk out and see giant mountainsides of rusty rock. That doesn't exist. You're going to see rolling topography, very gentle topography, trees and that till cover. So what it comes down to is doing the hard work, doing that systematic exploration, doing the geophysics, and that's been something that's really been missing in this area. So we've spent the last 2 years really defining four large new porphyry targets, all with highway access. We don't have an exploration camp, so that's also important as it brings down our exploration cost. So we can operate right now at about a third of the cost of what our northern BC peers might be paying, especially if you start looking towards potential here for fuel prices rising is going to certainly increase the cost of remote exploration camps, helicopter-based drilling. We don't have to do any of that because we're drive on to all of our targets, and we can operate year round, and we can operate earlier in the year than most others. So that really, I think, speaks to what's happening now. So yeah, what we've done with Tor, so we've come to this point where we have four porphyry targets. None of those have been drilled until late last year. We started drilling the first one, which is Bertha. So
Okay.
what's changed now? So the first phase of drilling at Bertha really changed it from we've confirmed that there's a large hydrothermal copper system there. We encountered native copper and alteration, porphyry style alteration down to about 580 meters vertical depth. The one thing that came out of it, though, was that we identified a very large system, but we did not hit the source of that system. So that's what we're doing here with phase two drilling. That is going to be starting up as soon as we wrap up a little more geophysics and reconnaissance work. We have a field crew who's mobilized a site this week, and that's in the news release that we just put out this morning. So with that, we're just refining the targets a little bit further with some IP geophysics and magnetics. That'll lead to drilling. I'm anticipating that our phase two drilling, fully funded up to 6,000 meters, will start in mid-May, is what we're aiming for. And what that is doing, this is the important thing. Basically, the whole news release, you could take that, boil it down to we're moving from confirmation of the system to drilling of the potential source of that system. So we've identified one of the targets that we call Bertha North. This one is different. It's linked. It builds off of what we did in that first phase of drilling. We now have a better understanding of the geophysics of the ground, the type of geology that we're looking at. And what we're looking at when we look at Bertha North, we see differences in the geophysics that tells us that this looks more like a mineralized intrusive unit. Those being important as the potential sources of these large porphyry systems. We're still looking for something that is a New Afton style system. Why we're looking for that is because it's got the capacity for higher grade. New Afton is one of the highest grade copper gold porphyries in all of British Columbia, about 0.7% copper, zero point 0.7 grams per ton gold. So quite high above average for British Columbia. It's smaller, it's less than 100 million tons, but it packs a punch with 2 billion pounds of copper, 2 million ounces of gold. And we see some very strong correlation still. This has been the model we've been working with in Bertha. The only thing we were missing was the heat engine in phase one. Now we're going to be testing what we think could be the source of that mineralization in phase two. With that, I do want to speak a little bit about New Afton just because it builds into, I think, the macro scale as well. So if you look towards Core Mining just recently acquired New Gold for $7 billion US. Within New Gold, the only two assets that they had was New Afton and the Rainy River Gold Mine. Rainy River Gold Mine is down in northern Ontario. New Afton is that copper gold deposit just to our north. And I really think they were looking towards secure supply chains. This is Core Mining's first ever copper asset. So you're seeing a North American large company trying to become a bigger major miner. And where do they look? They look towards the southern Quesnel Trough, and they look towards these higher grade copper gold porphyry systems such as New Afton. So with that, New Afton does have a near-term need for feed right now. It lasts to about 2031. That being said, any meaningful new discovery in this district is certainly going to attract attention for that near-term feed and transaction potential. So that is our strategic thinking. We're angling towards that if we're looking to identify and define the potential here and then move it along into a potential transaction in some way or form. Uh, with that, we're only starting with one target right now. We're focusing at Bertha, but we do have three other targets. So we have the Sonic Zone, we have Kirby and Lodi. Those, whether or not we drill them, we'll see if it ever becomes necessary. But they also add some incredible incentive value, I think, to the project portfolio. And all that to say that it's all built in, that we're at a very good price right now. As you said, we're trading around 11 cents, just over 9 million market cap. We have about just over 3.7 million in working capital. So it means that we're fully funded for this next phase of exploration. And with that, I think we're going to have a very exciting start to the year here.
Wow, very good update, Malcolm.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what else we can tell listeners. I mean, just a couple highlights while we close here. I mean, your comment about the jurisdiction and the nine major mines. I mean, it reminds me John Robbins, who's one of the Canadian great explorers, one of the founders of Great Bear Resources, done tons of work in BC. John always said to me, if you want to find gold or copper, look where there's gold and copper. And so that whole New Afton also reminds me of David Elliott, another, great resource investor that, one of his first discoveries, one of his first wins was the New Afton deposit, a number of years ago. So I think that infrastructure is really, really important. And I think it reminds me at the last Metal Investor Forum, I can't remember which company it was, but on their map, they had as a reference point McDonald's. They had a McDonald's icon, close to their property, which
Oh, I
which
like that.
it's
Yeah.
kind of a fun idea, which you could do. You'd have about 10 McDonald's on your project map, just to highlight to people how important infrastructure, power, water, mining friendly jurisdictions like British Columbia. So I think you did a wonderful job of highlighting that. So what
Certainly.
I suggest to investors, I mean, take a look at the current news release, go to the website, look at the maps. Very exciting, and I think we'll end off with what's the plan over the next few months. They're going to drill the source, as Malcolm said. So, thank you very much to Malcolm Dorsey, Chief Executive Officer of Tor Metals. What a great update, and I think we're gonna have a great year. Thanks, Malcolm.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me, Sherman.
My pleasure. Morning, everyone.